You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter @RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am the Jacob Valk, except no imitation. I've got to start with Browns-Bengals. A lot of controversy surrounding the Browns, cutting Odell Beckham. Is Baker Mayfield any good? Are they going to be able to go into Cincinnati and beat their in-state rivals? You had a sense that the Bengals would be motivated to win this game after losing to the Jets. I didn't know many people who were picking the Browns in this game, but give the Browns a ton of credit. Their offense looked incredible. Their defense looked incredible. Denzel Ward with the 99-yard pick six. Joe Burrow getting sacked 5 times and throwing 2 interceptions. Jamar Chase looking human. Baker Mayfield making really good decisions with the football. Nick Chubb looking like the second coming of Jim Brown. 14 carries for 137 yards and 2 touchdowns. That is an average of 9.8 yards per carry. That is nothing short of video game-like. The Browns absolutely ran roughshod over the Bengals. This was an important win for them. They had to show that they could put all of these distractions aside and go out on Sunday and win. Would they be able to win without Beckham? Would the distractions be too much? Would Baker Mayfield be able to thrive with a wide receiver core that at the very least doesn't have Beckham as a distraction? Like, say what you want about Jarvis Landry, but at least Landry's a distraction. At least you have to pay attention to him. And you saw that yesterday. Even though he only had 3 catches for 11 yards, the Bengals defense was still keying in on him. So it allowed Chubb to go off. It allowed Donovan Peoples-Jones to have the big 60-yard catch. I mean, give Mayfield credit. I thought he was really good. Is Baker Mayfield great? At this very moment, the answer is probably no. See, the thing with great quarterbacks is they can win by themselves. I don't think Mayfield can do that. I think he needs help. And that's okay. If Mayfield just turns into a very good quarterback, maybe that's not what you want from the first overall pick, but given what the Browns had to go through to get to this point, all these supposed saviors that flamed out, you'll take Mayfield. You'll take a very good quarterback, and you'll give him whatever contract he wants. I like Mayfield. Always have, always will. This was a huge win for the Browns to go out and destroy a Bengals team that we thought was really good. Are they? I don't want to write them off. I don't want to say they're not a playoff team, but technically speaking, they're out of the playoffs if the season ends today. You know who the 3 wild cards would be in the AFC if the season ended today? The Raiders, the Steelers, and the Patriots. The freaking New England Patriots would be in the playoffs. They are 4-1 in their last 5. They won their last 3. Is Mac Jones putting it all together? No. They're still beating up on bad teams, and Jones hasn't really impressed me. But, to be fair, Patriots are in the playoff picture. Then again, in the interest of full transparency, I will say that the Patriots are tied with the Chiefs, Browns, Bengals, and Broncos for the final wildcard spot, and you can't tell me that the Patriots are better than the Chiefs, the Browns, or the Bengals. Maybe the Broncos, but that's about it. I mean, the Bengals are good. They're still a good team. Not great. Maybe we were overrating them a little earlier in the year. But they are still 5-4. This is their bye week. It's coming at a really good time. Zach Taylor can right the ship a little bit, get his team back on track. Because the Bengals do have a tough end to the season. Raiders, Steelers, Chargers, Niners, Broncos, Ravens, Chiefs, Browns. All those games are going to be dogfights. There are no gimmies. Can the Bengals make the playoffs? The answer is yes. Will they? I don't know. It's tough. It's certainly possible. But I wouldn't bet the rent on it. Moving on now to Cardinals 49ers. I have been critical of Cliff Kingsbury a lot. I thought he was being overrated a little bit. I thought that the only reason that the Cardinals were good was because of Kyler Murray. I understand that Kingsbury is the seminal reason that Kyler Murray is a Cardinal. I've always given him full credit for making the correct decision to move on from Josh Rosen to bring in Kyler Murray. Would I have done it if I was in charge of the Cardinals in the 2019 draft? No. I would have taken Nick Bosa. Or traded down. But I probably would have taken Bosa. Would that have been the wrong decision? Absolutely. So I'll give Kingsbury credit. In fact, I've always given him credit. Since it became clear that that was the right decision. But with Kyler Murray out, and Colt McCoy forced to start against a pretty darn good Niners defense, I thought for sure that the Cardinals would lose this game. Like in my offline pool, I picked the Niners. Obviously, I was wrong. Colt McCoy looked absolutely incredible. Completed 22 of his 26 passes for 249 yards and a touchdown. James Conner was outstanding. He averaged just over 4.5 yards per carry, had just under 100 yards, had 2 touchdowns. He added in 5 catches for 77 yards and a touchdown, so he had 3 total touchdowns. Christian Kirk was really good, 6 catches for 91 yards. Antoine Wesley was good, 3 catches for 62 yards. I don't want to say that this was a statement win by the Cardinals, because the Niners aren't that good, but they did beat a division rival on the road. That is impressive. They forced Kyle Shanahan to get away from his game plan really early. You know that in a perfect world, Jimmy Garoppolo would not be throwing 40 passes. Was Garoppolo good? Yeah. Completed 28 of 40 passes for 326 yards and 2 touchdowns. He did throw an interception, but he was also sacked 5 times. One thing that I will give Shanahan credit for is getting the ball to Elijah Mitchell, even though the Niners got away from the running game. Mitchell did have 5 catches for 43 yards. George Kittle in his return looked really good. 6 catches for 101 yards and a touchdown. Brandon Ayuk, hopefully, has earned some more run in the Niners offense. 6 catches for 89 yards and a touchdown. Deebo Samuel was good. 5 catches for 63 yards. I'll give the Niners credit. They weren't awful. They just couldn't stop this great Cardinals offense. Colt McCoy just sliced and diced them. James Conner bullied his way to almost 100 yards. I've got to be fair. I criticize Cliff Kingsbury a lot, but he coached a perfect game yesterday. He called an immaculate game. Outstanding job by him. I mean, the Cardinals are 8-1. I've got to be fair. The coach deserves at least some credit for that, right? I'll give Kingsbury credit. He looked really good yesterday. I will say, though, at least one of my coaching critiques proved to be valid. Kyle Shanahan was getting killed a lot on Twitter for what he was doing. And you know what? Rightfully so. Yes, on an individual level, the Niners' offense was good, but they did only put up 17 points. They really didn't sustain long drives. The offensive line really didn't play well. When do we start realizing who Kyle Shanahan really is? A bad NFL head coach that wouldn't be in this position if not for the fact that his last name is Shanahan. This guy rode his father's coattails to a head coaching job in San Francisco, nearly won a Super Bowl because of Robert Saleh and his great defense. This guy would be nothing if not for the fact that his last name is Shanahan. He's only had 1 winning season. That's it. 1. This will be his 5th year as a head coach in the NFL. How does he survive that? Seriously. Again, the individual performances are great, but if they don't result in wins, it means nothing. That's Joe Brady logic. Oh, let me tell you, Joe Brady, he's an offensive genius. Look at the great years that Mike Davis and DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson and Curtis Samuel had. They all had over 1,000 scrimmage yards. The Panthers went 5-11. In terms of points per game, they had just the 24th best mark in the NFL. And now look at them. 1-5 in their last 6? Sam Darnold has looked nothing short of inept. I mean, I said this would happen. And it's nice to see people finally realizing that Sam Darnold is a bad quarterback. But those same people were also saying that Joe Brady is an offensive genius. Use your freaking noodles! I understand that the Panthers are 4-5. A lot better than 5-11. But they're 1-5 in their last 6. And look at the teams that they've beaten. The Jets, the Saints, the Texans, and the Falcons. They're facing the Cardinals this week. They're going to get creamed. Look, my point is that you can't look at a coach's success through the lens of individual players. You have to look at the team's success. And you have the Panthers at 4-5, 5-11 last year. The Niners went 6-10 last year and are currently 3-5. Realistically, Kyle Shanahan and Joe Brady should both be out of jobs. And Matt Rule needs to be on the hot seat too. This guy engineered the Darnold trade. It looks like a complete disaster. There's a real chance that Darnold doesn't even finish out the year as the Panthers' starting quarterback. Again, everything that I said about him has been proven right. He got off to a hot start. Give him credit. He went 3-0. But then 1-5 in his last 6? That's not going to work. Darnold is useless, Joe Brady is useless, and Kyle Shanahan is useless. This is what happens when you look at coaches through the lens of individual players. You're left with idiots like Kyle Shanahan and Joe Brady. I'm not ready to put Rule there yet, but I'm getting there. He's not without blame here. Brady's the easier scapegoat, but Rule looks like he's been overrated for a really, really long time. The Jets supposedly really wanted him. Twice. Boy, did they dodge a bullet. God only knows what's going to happen with Salah. But no one's going to be mistaking Matt Rule for Weeb Eubank anytime soon. You want to tell me that the jury's still out on him? Alright, maybe. I mean, he got a long contract. David Tepper gave him a lot of money. But at some point, Rule's seat is going to start to get warm. Brady and Shanahan, I'm completely done with. Moving on now to Packers-Chiefs. You know, it's funny. When Fox found out that they were televising this game before the start of the season, they had to be really happy. Aaron Rodgers versus Patrick Mahomes. This could be a Super Bowl preview. These two quarterbacks are going to go off. We're going to get incredible ratings. This is going to be a great game. Oh, we couldn't be happier. Well, the Chiefs look human. They're 5-4 and didn't really impress yesterday. And Aaron Rodgers didn't play because he is an idiot. I'll get into his idiocy in a minute, but I just want to say this. The Kansas City Chiefs really are not that good. This was not an impressive win. Patrick Mahomes didn't look great. His best moment was the last real play of the game, where he was rolling right and found Tyreek Hill. Hill made the really good catch. It was 3rd and 5. Then Andrew Wiley had the false start to make it 3rd and 10. You're thinking, okay, this just got a lot harder. The Packers are going to have a shot here. And as I'm seeing Mahomes run, I'm screaming at the TV, a sack is not a bad thing. If you take a sack, the clock keeps running. You can take the delay of game. That's not the end of the world. You're out of field goal range anyway. You can pin Jordan Love deep in his own zone, so he'll have to drive like 90 yards down the field with no timeouts. The way Love played yesterday, you knew he wasn't doing that. But Mahomes threw a great pass to Tyreek Hill. That was by far and away Mahomes' best moment. Job well done there. As for the Packers, I don't want to say that Jordan Love is a bust. You can't say that after the guy makes his first NFL start. But it's hard to look at that game and be really optimistic about his future. It's hard to look at a guy who got shut out for over 3.5 quarters, threw a killer interception in the fourth quarter when the Packers were finally able to get something going offensively, and say that's the guy who's going to lead us into the future. I was not impressed with Love at all. The reality is he should have been able to slice and dice this bad Chiefs defense. I don't care if it's your first NFL start or not. I understand that it's a nationally televised game. You have, if not the entire NFL world watching, a sizable percentage of it watching. I get that, but it's hard to look at that performance and be confident in Jordan Love going forward. I'm not writing him off, but he should have been better. That's the thing. In a perfect world, Jordan Love would have been a lot better than completing just 19 of his 34 passes for just 190 yards. The Packers could have won that game very easily. They didn't. If Aaron Rodgers was under center, the Packers would have won that game. It's just that simple. But the reality is, Rodgers wasn't, because he is an idiot. I really don't know where to start with Rodgers. You have him saying before the season that he's immunized. It's a weird way of phrasing that he's vaccinated, but okay. Everyone was under the assumption that he was vaccinated against the coronavirus. Then you get the news that he tested positive and that he actually didn't receive a vaccine. What on earth is going on? Like, not for nothing, but after the stunt that you pulled in the offseason with wanting to be out of Green Bay, then renegotiating your contract, and making it so this will be revisited in the offseason, you think lying to your fans is gonna keep you in their good graces? I mean, I know some Packers fans that are sick of Aaron Rodgers, that want him off the team. And this was before they knew that he had lied about being vaccinated. They were happy with the win-loss record. They were happy with what Rodgers was doing. But after the stunt that he pulled, I know people that wanted him off the team. They wanted to see what Jordan Love could do. Have a lean year. They were okay with that. They had that in Rodgers' first year. I think it's safe to say that worked out in the long run. Roll with Love and see what you have in him. Now in the past week, we've learned that Jordan Love may not have what it takes to be an NFL quarterback. I understand it's just one start. And I'm not saying he's a bust. I'm not saying that you should look to move on from him. But he should have been better than what we saw yesterday. Okay? It's just that simple. If you were holding Jordan Love's stock before yesterday, you've got to know that that stock has taken a hit. Okay? It just has. And now you know that Aaron Rodgers is a certifiable moron. It's bad enough that Rodgers lied, but some of the reasons that he was throwing out are just absurd. Oh, I've done my own research, and I know that what I'm doing makes me just as safe, if not safer. These alternate treatments are really good. You know, Joe Rogan told me to do this, that, and the other. Aaron, buddy, you're a quarterback, not a scientist. I understand that it's good to have a little healthy skepticism. And I'm not saying listen to what everyone tells you. But why are you listening to Joe Rogan for medical advice over some of the leading scientific minds in this country, in the world? Why aren't you listening to your own union? Why aren't you listening to the NFL? Here's the thing that ticks me off more than anything else, okay? Aaron Rodgers can be an idiot all he wants, and that hurts just Aaron Rodgers. Okay, you want to tell me it hurts the Packers? You want to tell me it hurts his teammates? You want to tell me it hurts his coaches? You want to tell me it hurts Packers fans? You're right, but there's a bigger issue here. We're at the point where kids 5 to 11 are going to be eligible to get vaccinated against the coronavirus. If you're a 10-year-old Packers fan and you look up to Aaron Rodgers, you have his jersey, you have a poster of him in your room, he's your favorite player, whatever. Now there is a real chance that that 10-year-old says, Aaron Rodgers is unvaccinated, so I want to stay unvaccinated. Did Rodgers think about that? Did Rodgers think that he may be putting his younger fans at risk? Did any of these athletes like Kyrie Irving think that their stupidity would put their younger fans at risk? The fans that they have a moral obligation to lead in the right direction? There are a lot of kids out there that have absent parents. They don't have people steering them in the right direction. Should I get vaccinated? Should I not get vaccinated? A 10-year-old isn't going to be able to make that decision by himself. So if his favorite player says, I'm vaccinated, you should be too, that may provide the encouragement that that young man needs to get vaccinated. Aaron Rodgers is just a disgusting human being. You know, I defended him when he wanted out of Green Bay. I said that he was right. to be upset with the Packers, that they didn't do a lot to support him, that he had a right to be upset, he had a right to want out, he had a right to be ticked off at the Jordan Love pick. I don't know if I can do that anymore. The reality is, this guy put a lot of people at risk with this decision. I don't know how many people knew that Rodgers was unvaccinated within the Packers organization. I find it hard to believe that the whole team knew. That seems like the kind of thing that would have come out. Someone would have leaked it. If the 52 other Packers knew, and the coaches and people in the front office, that's a lot of people to keep a secret. Especially a secret as big as this. Aaron Rodgers, one of the best players in the NFL, a future Hall of Famer, is lying about being vaccinated. Aaron Rodgers is just a disgusting excuse for a human being. It's just that simple. To lie like this, to endanger the lives of your younger fans, what a disgrace. What an absolute disgrace. And the people throwing out these alternate theories on the coronavirus that are against scientific consensus, people like Joe Rogan, are just as bad. You know, I'm not saying that I'm as popular as Joe Rogan. I'm obviously not. I don't know if I'll ever be as popular as Joe Rogan. And there's a part of me that likes Joe Rogan. I don't go out of my way to listen to him, but on occasion I will. He's very entertaining, I'll say that. The thing about Rogan that's really impressive is he can interview someone about a topic that I have no interest in, but I'll be enthralled by his interview. There are very few people that can do that. Interview someone about a topic that you're not interested in, but keep you enthralled. Joe Rogan, Howard Stern, hopefully Jacob Valk, that may be it. I mean, I'll tell you, I don't know exactly what Rogan has said about the coronavirus. I know earlier this year he said that healthy people don't need to be vaccinated. I know that he tested positive for the coronavirus. I thought that he had changed his tune. But I haven't listened to him in a really long time. The reality is, if Joe Rogan is disseminating this misinformation, he needs to be held accountable for it. See, here's the thing. While I don't have as big an audience as Joe Rogan, I have a decent audience. 5,000 subscribers on YouTube. 5,000 Twitter followers. That's nothing to sneeze at. The way I see it, I have a moral responsibility to them to lead them in the right direction. And this isn't something like an opinion, like Zach Wilson can be a franchise quarterback. At the end of the day, that doesn't affect your day-to-day life. But getting vaccinated, that does. And I have said this before, I will say it again, get vaccinated. And get the booster shot if you're eligible for it. Do what you can to keep yourself and the people around you safe. If I didn't say that, what kind of a man would I be? How could I sleep at night, knowing that I'm going against scientific consensus like that? all these people saying they've done their own research. What kind of research is that? Looking at unpeer-reviewed internet articles? What kind of double-blind, placebo-controlled studies are you doing? What kind of research on treatments are you doing? For goodness sake, we have people taking horse medication because these random articles on the internet are saying to. That's the research that you're doing? What makes that acceptable as opposed to the peer-reviewed studies that have been done on these vaccines? Aaron Rodgers said that he is allergic to an ingredient in the mRNA vaccines. To date, the United States has okayed 3 vaccines against the coronavirus. Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson/Janssen. Pfizer and Moderna are mRNA. So if Rodgers is allergic to an ingredient there, okay. I don't know whether I can believe him or not, but let's run with that for the sake of this argument. Johnson & Johnson/Janssen is not an mRNA vaccine. It's called a viral vector vaccine. Basically, what it does is it delivers genetic material into your cells to help your body fight the coronavirus. It doesn't alter your DNA. It doesn't upload a microchip so that Bill Gates can track you or Satan can control you. All the Johnson & Johnson/Janssen vaccine does is causes your immune system to produce antibodies against the virus that causes COVID-19. It has nothing to do with mRNA. It's a viral vector vaccine. So if Aaron Rodgers is truly allergic to an ingredient in the mRNA vaccines, he could just do a little bit of research and realize that the Johnson & Johnson/Janssen vaccine has nothing to do with mRNA. It should be safe for him. And poof, he's done. Instead, he decided to be an idiot. He decided to lie. What a disgrace. What an absolute disgrace. You know what? Just on principle alone, the Packers should bench him. You don't get to lie to us and our fans and still be our quarterback. You're ready to go? You're healthy? We're going to start Jordan Love instead. How great would that be? Wouldn't you have loved Jordan Love to have just gone off against the Chiefs? Throw 4 touchdowns, throw for 500 yards. Wouldn't that have made you really happy? Unfortunately, Love looked inept. So who would you rather have? A quarterback who no one knows if he's going to be good or not? Or a liar, but someone who's a future Hall of Famer? From a moral perspective, the answer is Jordan Love. But from a football perspective, it's Aaron Rodgers. Like, quite frankly, I just want someone from the Packers to say this. And it could be Matt LaFleur, it could be Brian Gutekunst, whoever. While we vehemently disagree with what Aaron Rodgers did, he gives us the best chance to win football games. That's all we care about. That's what we're paid to do. Win football games, so Rodgers is going to start. Just be open. Just be honest. Honesty is the best policy. Moving on now to Titans-Rams. What a crazy game. You've got to give a ton of credit to the Titans defense for stepping up. Everyone's talking about how the Titans offense is going to be without Derrick Henry. No one talked about the defense. When I spoke to Jeff Benedict, the author of The Dynasty, one of the questions that I asked him was what the mood was in the locker room after Drew Bledsoe got hurt. Did people think that their season was over, or did they think that they could still win? And Jeff said that the Patriots defense didn't adopt a keel over and die mentality. They were going to do what they could to win football games. They didn't have a defeatist attitude. That's the right way to go about it. And you saw that on display last night. Case in point, that crazy sequence in the second quarter. Brett Kern unleashes a beautiful punt that's down at the Rams' 4-yard line. The Rams had 3rd and 4 at their own 10. Stafford drops back. He's basically in his own end zone at this point. Maybe his heels were out of the end zone, but he was really close. Jeffrey Simmons spins him around, and in order to avoid the safety, Stafford decides to throw the ball right into the waiting arms of David Long. There was literally no Ram within 20 yards of David Long. You gotta wonder what Stafford was thinking. I understand wanting to prevent the safety. I totally get that. So congratulations, you saved 2 points by giving up 7. As if it couldn't get worse. On the next play, Stafford threw a pick 6 to Kevin Byard. I mean, in all fairness to Stafford, that was a good play by Byard. He diagnosed the play perfectly. I mean, that ball never should have been thrown, but it seemed like that was a designed play, so I can't get too upset at Stafford for that. But I can get upset at him for doing his best Carson Wentz impression. Seriously, that was an interception that Wentz threw last week. Gifted the Titans a win. Same thing happens in the next Titans game. What is it with the Titans and facing these quarterbacks that make bad decisions? You know which quarterback faced them and didn't make bad decisions? Zach Wilson. Just to be fair, he did get the win. Kyler Murray, too, was really good against them. First week of the season. Outstanding job by the Titans defense. They made Stafford look really bad. They limited Sonny Michel's effectiveness. I mean, Ryan Tannehill wasn't great, but he did enough. He did enough to win. And I'll give the Titans running game a little credit. They did have 3 running backs, Deontay Foreman, Jeremy McNichols, and Adrian Peterson, run for over 20 yards. Certainly not great performances, but seeing as though the Titans are without Derrick Henry, I'll take it. That was a statement win for them. That was a big upset win on national television. There seems to be a chance that Derrick Henry can come back at some point in time this year. Maybe it's unlikely, but there seems to be an outside chance of that. If that happens, you've got to look at the Titans as a legitimate threat to go on a big playoff run. They're without question one of the two best teams in the AFC. In fact, they may be the best team in the AFC, depending on how you feel about the Ravens. Ravens or Titans, it's very close. It's not the Bills right now. I'm not giving up on the Bills. I'm not saying that they're gonna flame out in the playoffs, but I really can't say too many good things about them after they lost to the Jaguars 9-6. It's hard to be too confident in the Bills right now, given what we saw yesterday. There is another NFL story that I want to talk about. That is the Raiders finding their replacement for the disgusting piece of garbage that is Henry Ruggs in Desean Jackson. Jackson will finish out the year with the Raiders. A really, really good move for the Raiders. What was Henry Ruggs primarily in the Raiders' offense? A deep threat. What has Desean Jackson been his whole career? A deep threat. Like, you saw it yesterday against the Giants. The Raiders were missing that vertical element in the passing game. It's not Kenyon Drake. It can be Darren Waller, but he's a tight end. You want a wide receiver that can be a vertical threat also. I mean, here's the thing. Out of the 7 Raiders to catch a pass yesterday, only 2 were wide receivers. Hunter Renfrow and Zay Jones. Waller's a tight end, Drake is a running back, Alec Ingold's a fullback, and Josh Jacobs and Jalen Richard are running backs. Big reason why the Raiders lost yesterday. Their lack of wide receiver production. Now with Jackson coming into the fold, that's an outstanding fit. I understand that Jackson did not have a good year with the Rams. Only had 8 catches, didn't start a game. But he did have 221 receiving yards. That is 27.6 yards per catch. If you were to write down on a piece of paper what the Raiders really needed in the absence of Henry Ruggs, it would look a lot like Desean Jackson. This is a great move by the Raiders. And one thing I was thinking about, is Desean Jackson a future Hall of Famer? Some people will say yes. I'd probably say no. See, here's the thing with Jackson. He only made 3 Pro Bowls, was never first team All-Pro, only made the NFC title game once, got hurt a lot, and was really a one-trick pony as a deep threat. Maybe in a weak year, he's a Hall of Famer, but he's not a Hall of Famer in a perfect world. Alright, now I'll give you some college football Valk talk. Haven't done that a lot recently. That's a bad job by me. And I'll start with the only game that featured 2 ranked teams. Auburn versus Texas A&M. the Aggies absolutely destroyed the Tigers 20-3. I mean, in all fairness, this wasn't a great offensive showing by A&M. Their offense didn't have a single touchdown. Here's how A&M scored. Field goal, field goal, field goal. Bo Nix fumbled. That resulted in Michael Clemens running the ball back 24 yards for a touchdown. And then another field goal. The A&M offense was not good, but their defense was sensational. I mean, watching that game, I was really surprised that Brian Harsin didn't bench Bo Nix for TJ Finley. I'm not saying that Finley would have led Auburn to victory, but Nix looked inept. The guy completed less than half of his passes for 153 yards. He was atrocious. Outstanding job by the A&M defense. Everyone played well. This is a big win for the Aggies. Not saying they have any CFP hopes. They don't. Not with 2 losses, but this will help them get into a New Year's 6 bowl game. No question about that. There were 2 huge upsets that happened yesterday. 2 undefeated teams went down. The first one was Wake Forest losing a shootout to UNC 58-55. I thought Wake Forest could have made the CFP. If they went undefeated, it would have been hard to keep them out. Now there's no chance. And what did I tell you about Sam Howell? People have been selling Howell stock. I'm buying Howell stock. I view this kid as a first-round talent. Really good dual-threat quarterback. He completed 16 of his 26 passes for 216 yards and a touchdown. He also had 21 carries for 104 yards and 2 touchdowns. The real story for the Tar Heels, though, was Ty Chandler. The Tennessee transfer had 22 carries for 213 yards and 4 touchdowns. The thing that made this win really impressive for UNC was the fact that entering the fourth quarter, they were down 48-34. They're down by 2 touchdowns. Their defense hasn't been able to stop Sam Hartman to save their lives. But they really stepped up when they needed to. UNC's offense stepped up. The more I watch Sam Howell, the more I'm impressed with him. The way I see it right now, there are 3 quarterbacks that I would take in the first round. This is in alphabetical order, nothing else. Matt Corral, Howell, and Kenny Pickett. Desmond Ridder can get there if Cincinnati continues to play great. I could see myself putting Ridder in the first round, but I haven't been overly impressed with Cincy this year. I understand that they're undefeated, but their wins haven't been incredibly impressive to me. But if Ritter balls out in the CFP, I could see myself putting him in the first round. Some people are saying Malik Willis. I don't see it. He's suffering from the Lamar Jackson effect. People see how great Lamar Jackson is in the NFL, so they see a guy with a similar skill set in Willis, and they think that he can turn into something. I just don't see it. The other undefeated team going down was MSU. Purdue shocked the nation by beating the Spartans 40-29. This was just a dreadful job by the MSU defense. The only defensive player on the Spartans that impressed me was Jacob Panasiuk. That's it. But Aiden O'Connell looked like the second coming of Drew Brees. All due respect to O'Connell, there's no excuse for him to complete 40 of his 54 passes for 536 yards and 3 touchdowns. This was a dreadful game by the Spartans defense. They should have stormed into West Lafayette and beaten the Boilermakers easily. Instead, their CFP dreams are probably dead. I mean, realistically, the Spartans could fall down all the way to 8. Oregon won, OSU won, Cincinnati won, and Michigan won. Oklahoma didn't play. I don't see how the Spartans make the CFP. I'll say this. These rankings are going to be interesting. Because how do you leave an undefeated Bearcats team and an undefeated Sooners team out? You want to tell me UTSA was left out? Look, I like UTSA. I'd have them a lot higher, but we know that the CFP doesn't like schools from conferences like Conference USA. But Cincinnati? A team with a really talented quarterback in Desmond Ridder? And a very talented running back in Jerome Ford? You're going to leave them out? You're going to leave Oklahoma out? They're in the Big 12. And just because I don't think Ridder is a first-round quarterback yet doesn't mean that I think he's a bad quarterback. I respect Ridder's talent. He can be a second-rounder if the draft was tomorrow. And I think he can be a first-rounder. I just don't think he's there yet. There's nothing wrong with that. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens going forward with the CFP. Alright, now I'll give you some NHL Valk talk. Specifically on the Blackhawks firing Jeremy Colliton as their head coach. Another former Islander, Derek King, who was the head coach of the Blackhawks AHL team, the Rockford Ice Hogs, will be the Blackhawks head coach. In fact, King was the Blackhawks head coach when they beat the Predators yesterday 2-1 in overtime. This has nothing to do with the sexual assault scandal. This is just the Blackhawks wanting to make a change because Jeremy Colliton really hasn't done that great a job. I mean, he hasn't been awful, but the Blackhawks had gotten off to a really bad start. They were 1-9-2. And you get this sense that the Blackhawks just want a fresh start. Like they're using that scandal as a reason to move into the next chapter. And they've needed to do that for a while. I wouldn't be surprised if guys like Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews and Marc-Andre Fleury were traded. I mean, granted, Fleury's going to have no trade value because he's gotten off to a terrible start, but Kane and Toews will. Yes, I know how crazy it is to say that the Blackhawks can trade Kane and Toews, but I really think that could happen. I do think that the Blackhawks are going to blow things up soon. I mean, even though Colliton's gotten off to a bad start, before the start of this season, he actually had a winning record as a head coach. 86-83. With 7 overtime losses. Now, granted, the Blackhawks had never finished higher than 6th in the division, but I always thought that was because the Central Division was really, really good. I never thought that was because the Blackhawks were a bad team. I mean, how does this grab you? At the time of the pause in 2020, every team in the Central Division had a winning record. I like Colliton. I think he's a good coach. I think he will land on his feet. I don't mind the Blackhawks wanting to blow things up, though. It seems like their Stanley Cup window is closed, and when that happens, you've got to move on. I'll say this, though. I'm very surprised that Derek King was named the head coach. All due respect to Derek King. I like Derek King. One of the best post-dynasty Islanders of all time. But what did he do to deserve being a head coach in the NHL? This guy did not do a good job in Rockford. Only had 1 winning season. Even at the time of the promotion, he was 3-5. You have Mark Crawford as an assistant coach. Mark Crawford has won a Stanley Cup. Granted, that was a long time ago. But how do you promote Derek King over Mark Crawford? That's tough. You want to tell me that you want to see what King can do in the NHL? You have that high of an opinion of him, so you want to give him a chance? I understand that. It's just hard for me to endorse Derek King as a head coach over Mark Crawford. King could have proved himself as a lead assistant. All due respect to King, I just don't think he's going to turn into a good NHL head coach. I do want to talk about a really sad death in the baseball world. That, of course, is the death of Pedro Feliciano, who died today at the age of 45. Pedro Feliciano was part of a breed of pitcher that no longer exists. The loogie. The lefty, only one-out guy. That was all Feliciano was. He'd be brought in to get lefties out, and that was it. One guy, you're gone. And that enabled him to pitch in a ton of games. From 2006 to 2010, Pedro Feliciano pitched in at least 64 games. In the last 4 of those years, he pitched in at least 78 games. In the last 3 of those years, he pitched in at least 86 games. Every year, from 2008 to 2010, he led the majors in games pitched. 08 with 86, 09 with 88, and 10 with 92. How does this grab you? Even though Feliciano was only a Met for really 5 full seasons, his baseball reference page will say 9, but in those 4 other years he pitched in no more than 25 games. So I don't consider him a full-term Met for those years. Even though that's the case, Feliciano is second all-time in games pitched in by a Met. The only Met who's ahead of him is John Franco. I mean, basically every game you would see Feliciano pitch against a lefty. And more often than not, he'd get him out. Feliciano was a very good loogie. Now, here's where the story gets a little weird. Entering the 2011 season, the Yankees only had one lefty in their bullpen. It was Boone Logan. How's that for a name out of the past? Logan turned into a good lefty after coming up from the minors. That's a story in and of itself. But the Yankees wanted another lefty. So they signed Feliciano to a 2-year deal worth $8 million. Before he could ever pitch in a game for the Yankees, Feliciano felt soreness in his left shoulder. That turned into him having a torn anterior capsule and rotator cuff in that shoulder. He needed surgery. He missed the 2011 season and the 2012 season. So the Yankees gave Pedro Feliciano $8 million just to rehab. Brian Cashman later said that the Mets overused Feliciano. And I'm not saying that's not true. Alright, you want to tell me that the Mets overusing him was the seminal reason why he only pitched in 25 games after the 2010 season? That's fine. But then why did you sign him in the first place, you stupid idiot? Not saying you're wrong, but if that's what you thought, why'd you give him money? If that was your mindset, how did you not see this coming? Again, Brian Cashman is an idiot. The Yankees went the whole 2011 season without a second lefty. In 2012, they brought in Clay Rapata, and he had a really good season, his best ever in the majors. He went 3-0 with a 2.82 ERA. He pitched in 70 games. But in 2011, it would have been nice to have had Feliciano. Would have been nice to have him pitching to Alex Avila and Brennan Bosch in the ALDS. Look, Feliciano was a really good loogie. One of the best Mets relievers of all time. There's no question about that. Here's the Mount Rushmore of Mets relievers. John Franco, Jesse Orozco, Tug McGraw, and Pedro Feliciano. That's the correct Mount Rushmore. May Feliciano rest in peace. Brooklyn Nets show comes your way tonight. Regular episodes of the Jacob Valk Show come your way every weekday afternoon. On Friday, you're going to get an interview that I'm going to do with David Kaiser, the author of a book on the 1965 NFL season. Until next time, I'm Jacob Valk, and always remember, if you disagree with me, you're wrong.